Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking about a very important topic facing schools all across the country, and certainly one that we know that schools consider to be a top priority, and that has to do with a national teacher shortage and teacher retention. And joining us to talk more about that and its impact is Dr. Penny Eucker, Executive Director of STEM School Highlands Ranch. Dr. Eucker, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So what we want to do is cover a range of topics regarding teacher retention. And before I even get into the questioning, I kind of wanted to provide some context as to what we're facing all across the country when we talk about this issue. There was recently an article put out there by the University of Denver. And in the article, it shares some statistics put out by the Economic Policy Institute as we talk about this issue. And the article says, quote, "The teacher shortage is real, large, and growing, and worse than we thought. If the current trends persist, the nationwide shortfall of qualified teachers would reach 200,000 by the year 2025, up from 110,000 in 2018. In other words, it's time to take it seriously," end quote. So again, this is an issue facing so many schools across the country. And when we talk about teachers, it's arguably the most important profession in the world, because without teachers, we don't have astronauts, physicians, the next innovators, the next world leaders. So I know that this is a topic that certainly you're keeping your eyes close on at STEM School Highlands Ranch. So let's just talk about what you think is the driving force behind this issue.
Well, that's a complex question, and we've been addressing it for 2 years. It is part of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan has 5 goals, and one goal is teacher care. It is critical. We have known for years that the pipeline of teachers, especially quality STEM teachers, is not what it needs to be. It is not robust. In fact, the report you gave from DU, they are producing only one math teacher this year, and DPS has claimed that teacher by paying their tuition, so that when that teacher graduates, that one math teacher will be going to DPS. So we are in a very competitive pool, and it is a critical shortage that we have the pulse on, and we are wrestling with that fact.
And as I talked about, this is an issue that is nationwide, but also a lot of Colorado schools are facing this too. So on a more local level, and certainly a more concentrated level from your perspective, is STEM School Highlands Ranch. In regards to teacher retention, how is the outlook for STEM School Highlands Ranch?
As I said, it's a complex issue that we have been working on. Colorado is one of the lowest funded school systems in the country. Depending on what metric you look at, we're approximately 38 out of 50 states for funding. This is this has been an issue for a very long time. If you go north to Wyoming, you get almost twice the funding, and in some states you get 3 times the funding. So we're operating on a very restricted budget for public schools. In addition, suburban schools in the Colorado formula get even less. So urban schools, rural schools get a larger apportionment of the low funding of Colorado, and Douglas County and Fort Collins are 2 of the lowest funded and among the lowest funded in the country. So we have to do a lot with very little. In addition, charter schools have to pay for their facility. District schools tend to have their facilities long paid for through bonds. We are going for bonds to pay for our facility. So in our very low apportionment of public funding, not only do we have to provide competitive salaries to attract and retain teachers, we also have to make sure that we pay for our facilities, we keep them clean, heated, the whole HVAC, snow removal, and all of that. So it's a complex problem, but our absolute priority is to make sure that we have competitive salaries. And for us, competitive salaries means within Douglas County. We can't compare ourselves with school districts that have different funding, and we can't compare ourselves with other states.
And if STEM ends up having many teacher vacancies between now and the start of next school year, how are you planning on dealing with that issue and ensuring that there's a minimal impact on the students?
We know all supports must go to the teacher to support student learning. That is our primary mission. That's what the taxpayers ask of us. So we need to make sure we put quality teachers and we support those teachers to have the resources they need to be the very best they can be, which includes a sustainable salary. So this is a priority of our budgeting. It is a priority of all of our supports that we give, and we start from there. We always ask the question, what is best for students? And the next question, how do you support quality teachers? Because we know students come here for that learning, that relationship, and we put every resource we can to attract and retain the very best teachers.
And on that same subject, for teachers who will be returning to STEM, they're going to ask and wonder what kind of help they're going to get in the classroom, since these days teachers are juggling so much. So, what kind of help will they be getting moving forward?
It's true, they have to juggle so much. Few people understand that teachers, so much of their day is compliance, and at state law, it's non-negotiable. They have to record accommodations for IEP or 504 students. They have to take roll by state law. We have many things we have to do during the day. Those are non-negotiable. And then from there, what's unique about our school is the PBL model, problem-based learning. So our students beginning in kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade are heavily involved in their learning through problem-based learning. So next year we will have dedicated support structures. Teachers have identified they need more help in crafting quality PBLs. And we have many that we sustain. For example, our seventh graders do a beautiful Holocaust museum where they learn not only the atrocities, but they also learn the technology of creating a virtual museum where you walk through with primary source materials and what is the difference between historic primary source and secondary source. So it's a very complex, meaningful rite of passage for our seventh graders. And so that is a sustainable PBL that we do year after year. We want those in every grade level, every semester. So we are putting a lot of resources to helping our teachers craft those. And hopefully it will take the burden of the design process away from teachers by being able to recycle those and refresh them each year.
Now, let's say there is a STEM teacher who leaves between now and the start of next school year, and this particular teacher is someone that a student considers to be very close to them and a teacher that they really like and get excited about. And then the next school year, that teacher is not there because they have moved on to another place, or they have made a personal choice to get out of the profession, whatever the case may be. You have a student left there, trying to continue to get excited about education while new faculty comes in. What is the best way to handle that type of transition so that a student continues to be excited when they lose a teacher that they're very close to?
That is one of the biggest challenges for all of us. We all get very attached to the personnel. It's a people organization, it's relationship built. And when we lose quality teachers, I understand that students grieve. I grieve. And some of our teachers uh, who have moved to other states, I reach out to them and on occasion and say, hey, we still miss you after many years. Would you consider coming back? And usually they have built a life in a new state or a new career. But they know we still grieve their loss. So I understand that students have these relationships with their teachers, and it is one of the biggest challenges to move on. The only way that we can is to hire new quality people, build those new relationships. And even though it's not optimal, some of the new staff we've hired this year have infused tremendous energy. Some of them come with youthfulness, excitement. And so with each new hire, we hope that the loss we sustained is filled by the enthusiasm of the new hire and the excitement that they bring, the fresh eyes, new ideas, and embracing the new staff that come in.
And talk about what STEM is doing to keep the quality teachers in place and to give them attractive offers to stay. And also on that same note, what is being done to keep morale high? Because we all know that under the stresses of this pandemic, that is certainly something that tends to take a hit at any school you find, because again, it goes back to how much you end up juggling as a teacher in the classroom because of this situation and what you're facing and all the stresses that come with it. So how do you keep morale high and keep quality teachers in place?
Well, Jeff, that's another complex question. To keep morale high in a COVID year is a challenge for businesses, for schools. I believe schools in particular. It has been a very challenging year to answer to both parents, student needs, mental health needs throughout the entire world, the United States, and in Douglas County STEM School Highland Ranch. So we have put, every month we survey our teachers and we ask questions. It goes through our staff feedback team, which is headed by teachers. And we look for actionable items, things that they have asked for as supports. And some of them are simple things that we can absolutely do, and we try to do them as quickly as we can. For example, one of our parents donated a food truck lunch, and it was Vietnamese food, and it was a surprise, and our staff absolutely loved that, and they asked for that again. Some are a little more complex that we put a task team to say, can we fulfill this wish that teachers have identified? One area that's really challenging on morale is the happiness level. The happiness level in a global pandemic has certainly dipped and mental health needs have increased. STEM School Highland Ranch is in an enviable position that we are 100% funded for mental health. That said, it doesn't solve mental health. Even with all the resources that we have, you still have mental health issues, and providers face that. So even though STEM School Highland Ranch is 100% funded for mental health, and we have all the supports we need, it is still a struggle to find satisfaction in a life where everything changes so quickly and we have so little control. So the more we can do to provide our teachers with what they ask for, the stronger that bond will be and that connection.
And when you talk to teachers, and you know this all too well, one of the biggest things that they value in the classroom, besides the students themselves, is time. Time is such a valuable commodity. And it's also something that teachers are constantly trying to manage so that they can deliver the best quality education. It's also one of the top complaints that teachers have during this time, being a teacher during a global pandemic, juggling so much. You only have so many hours throughout the day to do your job. So how is STEM ensuring that its staff is given the proper time to deliver quality education and that they aren't just getting entirely swamped day after day?
Time is one of the most precious commodities, and we have been looking at the issue of time for many years, including in an early TEL survey. It's the teacher learning survey that the state conducts every other year. And time was identified as a critical need many years ago, and that's when we brought in experts in time for schools to help us problem solve how to get more time for teachers in a day. And so we have been tinkering with those schedules. Again, we are constrained as a public school in funding, how does that look during the day to maximize time for teachers? Having been a teacher for many years, I know firsthand how that feels when you never have enough time. And I would question anyone in the workplace, if anyone says they have time to do their work to the quality they desire, I think most of us go home thinking if we only had more time to get the work done to the quality we would like. So that will probably always remain a critical resource. So to maximize the time, we look at what other districts do, we look at what Douglas County does, and we try to be equitable as best we can. Right now, we have a task force looking at our constraints, and we're asking our teachers to comment and help us land on what schedule would most satisfy their need for time, resources, and expectations for themselves that they hold for PBLs next year. So it's a dynamic process. We want to absolutely maximize our resources to provide the most time, and that will require feedback from our teachers. It will never be optimized that we will have plenty of time to do all the things we ask of ourselves and each other. It's a work in progress.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, what do you envision over the next few months in regards to how education looks in Colorado? And you can talk about enrollment, for example, because I keep hearing about how enrollment is also a primary concern at so many schools.
Colorado, like many states, have a very equitable distribution of public school dollars to educate children. It is distributed with a complex formula that makes sure if higher need areas such as urban and rural schools get more, suburban schools get less, although as a suburban school, we wish we got more, but it is an equitable as best you can distribution of funds. It follows the students. So by attracting students, you attract the funding that sustains your model. Uh, so schools are in a somewhat competitive landscape to make sure your program attracts more than the neighborhood school. Charter schools attract by their programming, and what sets us apart is our problem-based learning. That's why students come to us. Nationwide and in Colorado, enrollment's down about 3 to 6%. Parents are deciding to homeschool, go to private options that remained open during COVID. Who knows? Many issues factor into it. Even fewer children, aging neighborhoods. Highland Ranch is an aging neighborhood. Neighborhood schools are being emptied out. So lots of issues go into attracting your students. We build our budget based on our enrollment. Our enrollment's down for the last 2 years. And so we had to right size our faculty to make sure that we can sustain raises, competitive pay. So it all is interrelated, and we are very transparent with our faculty, with our entire community of what are those constraints and help us get smarter to maximize those limited resources.
Well, Dr. Eucker, thank you so much for taking the time to address these very important topics.
Thank you, Jeff.